Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Samp&Chance. Guys, today on this episode, we have a living legend, international superstar, Jacque Rougeau. You might know him as the Mountie as well, or a part of the Quebecers. He joins us today on Samp&Chance. We're going to talk about his career, his beginnings, and we're going to talk about all the great stuff that he's doing today, including Wrestle Academy. So sit back, strap in, and thank you for letting us into your ears. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Samp&Chance. I am your host, Bobby Sampson, and joined with me a very special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Jacque Rougeau, former Quebecer, the Mountie, international superstar. Mr. Rougeau, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Samson, it's a pleasure for me, especially coming from Vancouver. Always nice to be in touch with Vancouver, but I must correct you right off the bat, or just inform you that you forgot in your introduction the fabulous Rougeau brothers.
You know,
which,
and I was
with my
just
brother Raymond, and that was an amazing time. Also with Jimmy Hart as my manager,
absolutely.
And so those three characters did really well actually worldwide for about 10 years in the WWF. And they're all the characters that I did I really had fun with. They were really good characters and stuff. So anyway, nice to be here today, Samson.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yes, as soon as you said that, I remembered Raymond as well. I mean, obviously, I grew up with you guys, you know what I mean? Being in Canada, having the Bret Hart and whatnot. But then when you guys came onto the scene, that Canadian pride filled up even more. And being from Montreal and myself being a Habs fan, that was even better for me. So, I was completely behind you guys and I love the work that you guys did. But Jacque, I know you grew up in Quebec and you had Grand Prix wrestling and all these great promotions out there. But what was it for you that got you interested in the business?
Well, my father and my uncle, they owned the business here in Montreal. It was actually competition with Grand Prix Wrestling. It was called Les As de la Lutte, and so they were owners. And so I could tell you, I was brought up from a young age. From when I was 4 or 5 years old, I used to have Abdullah the Butcher and Joe LeDuc come to my house because they were main eventing against my dad and my uncle at the Forum in Montreal. So they'd come over and talk the match, and guys like, oh my God, Bobo Brazil and Rufus R. Jones, and I'm just going over the Sheik, and I'm going Ivan Koloff, and I'm going like that was all around me when I was young, a very young age, and they used to even come around the pool and talk business with my dad and my uncle. So I was kind of just thrown into wrestling when I was young. It was just for me like I'm a third generation, and my sons wrestled also, so they were fourth generation. So it's been a family thing all my life, and so it's nothing new to me to see wrestlers come around the house there.
No, phenomenal. So you were in competition with Grand Prix Wrestling, and they did a lot of great things as well. So what was that? Was it a fierce competition between the two groups, or did you guys work together?
Well, no, we didn't work together. It was like really competition. In those days, there was Les As de la Lutte, and there was Grand Prix Wrestling, and they were fighting for the market.
Yeah.
And so it was a big battle, a little bit like WCW and a little bit like AEW right now, that's gaining a lot of grounds and trying to fight with WWE. But there's always competition is good though. You see, because competition, even though it was against my father and my dad, and I hated Grand Prix and everything about it because they were working against my dad and my uncle.
Right.
Today, I realized that it was very good for the talent because, as long as you have competition, the promoter's got to take care of you. Because they know if you don't take care of you enough, then you're going to be going to the next company.
Right.
So competition is good for talent, and it always brings the best out of both because they're all, instead of just sitting on a winning station and a winning program and just taking it easy, they always got to compete to be better than the other one. So it puts everybody on their toes. So it's good for everybody now that you look at it from 40, 50 years later.
No, 100%. I mean, you grew up in the independents in the territories and everything like that. So you've literally seen the business evolve and grow and become what it is today. This global machine, probably more so with the WWE, obviously. But I mean, ultimately, your thoughts on the product today as a third generation wrestler?
Well, I'm going to surprise you now, Samson. I'm really
Hmm,
going to surprise you because about 30 years ago, I had a falling out with Vince McMahon,
okay.
and uh, and I turned the TV off. And in 30 years, I've never watched one TV show in 30 years.
Oh wow.
So I don't even know the talent. The
Okay.
only talent that I do know is Kevin Owens because I was his teacher. He was 14 years old and I taught him how to wrestle from 14 to 18 years old. I was
Yes.
training him like 6 hours a week. And so I know him. And then I know also guys like John Cena because I watched the movies and my students because I had a wrestling school in Montreal. They told me, hey, did you see the movie so and so? The John Cena's in there. Oh, okay. But apart from that, then I knew Chris Jericho because Chris Jericho was there in my last years when I was in the WWF,
Yes.
WWE. He
Yes.
was there. But apart from that, all these new talent that are on TV, I don't know. And I hope you won't be talking about them too much. I'll look like a fool because I don't.
No,
I
no, no,
don't.
not at all.
I did. But
Not at all.
I had this huge falling out, and for me, watching wrestling on TV was like a scar every time. And but it's funny because I do Comic Con still today now around the world, and I go sign autographs and meet the fans, and I'm just so happy because I don't know if the fans are just being nice to me or they're just being real, but they're all telling me that the best wrestling there ever was in the 80s and the 90s. That was the best time for wrestling. And the times that I was there with the WWF, the WrestleManias and the Pontiac Silverdome in front of 93,000 people, the Macho Mans and the Jake the Snakes and the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and the King Kong Bundys and the Kamalas and the
Right.
Rockers and the Hart Foundation and so those were the good years. The Tito Santana, I could go on, Coco Beware, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Those were the years where people come up to us in Comic Con and they keep telling us, it's so funny, like wrestling is so much more personal in those days. Like people had so much more attachment to the characters. Like everybody was different. It was in the days where less was more. Like today they're all telling me like they're doing 1,000 moves in 10 minutes, and it's like it's more like an acrobatic thing or the most spectacular one. Where in our days it was storytelling where
Yeah.
we could before starting a match, before doing our first lockup, we could spend 5 minutes in the ring just working the crowd and having fun, if you like. And so anyway, so I was there in the good years, I think.
No, 100%. I completely agree with you. Like, I mean, obviously, I've stayed with the product. A lot of people, like yourself, I mean, for different reasons or what have you, kind of grew out of it. But I just stayed with it, man. Like, for me, it was Stampede Wrestling that caught my attention. It was Bret Hart and Bad News Allen. They came out. I remember I'd never seen wrestling before. I saw that segment. Stampede was just finishing, and I was hooked. That was it for me. After that, I think it was 4 months. All I ever watched was Stampede. I didn't even know any other promotions existed. And then all of a sudden, WWF showed up and UWF showed up, NWA showed up on TV, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is amazing. And yeah, you're right. Today's wrestling is very, very move oriented, very spot oriented. The greatest story that's being told right now is probably the Bloodline with the Roman Reigns story. Otherwise, everything's very quick today. You're right. Absolutely. I'd have to agree with you. That is the current
I
product.
I actually started my career in with Stu Hart in the Stampede Wrestling in 1977,
Yes.
and then that was my first territory. I went back in '78 also, and actually when I went there in '77, Brett was driving the bus and he was refereeing.
Yeah.
That's when that was my first year was in Calgary, and going to Regina, Saskatoon, and it's so funny because on the 25th of July coming up in a couple of weeks from now, in a week from now. I'm going on a tour in Saskatchewan
Oh wow.
with Danny Warren, I think is his name, the promoter there.
Okay.
And I'm going on a tour, Prince Albert, Saskatoon, Regina, and I'm going to sign autographs before the wrestling shows. And it's been and will have been something like well, I was there in 77, 78, so count the years up till today. So
Yeah.
that's almost like 40 years, if not
Wow.
more. How long has it been? If you count 80, so it's 45 years
Yeah.
ago
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that I was in those towns, and now I'm going to go back to sign autographs. I haven't been there since,
That's
so it's
awesome.
gonna be amazing for the fans to go back and see the fans there. So just check out my website if you want, or check out the wrestling in Saskatoon there, the whole tour on the 25th. And you
Absolutely.
can come and see me if you're around in that area. And
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll put that out there.
I'll be dressed up with my Mountie suit there, and I'll have some fun to take pictures with everybody. That should be really cool.
That's amazing. I will get that once we see that information. We'll post it to our pages and make sure everyone is aware that where you're going to be. So I guess I have to ask the question: how did you become a part of the WWF? Then, how did that work out for you?
Well, you know how Vince started his big business in the '80s. Is he went to recruit the best wrestlers of every country, of every province, of every territory, and he went to, and we were lucky, my brother Raymond and I, that we were considered the best at the time, and so he went to recruit us, and so we end up in the WWF in '85. We went to sign there in '86. Actually, we started a tour in Australia. It was so funny because, you know, you used to go in like example in Calgary, Monday Lethbridge, Tuesday Red Deer, Wednesday Edmonton,
Right.
traveling around like that, and we'd do that in Montreal, you know, and the territory in Quebec. And next thing you know is the first night you're in Adelaide, the next night you're in Perth, the next night you're in Brisbane, and then you're in Sydney, and then we went to Hawaii, and then we went to, so we start going around every day. We were doing like flying every day, between 3 and 6 hours of airplanes every day, and sometimes more, 25 days a month on the road, you know, and in a row. And that's 25 nights of wrestling in a row to go back home to see your family for like 3-4 days. And so we were chosen by Vince to do that, and he didn't miss the boat, because we sure pulled our end of the deal there. Like, you know, we would had so many great matches, you know, with the Rockers and the Hearts, and I'm thinking of Jesus, the Bushwhackers even, and I'm thinking of the Moondogs when we first started there, and
Yeah.
but we'd always go in the ring, and we'd have the people on their feet by the end of the match, and so that was really something that was amazing. So we both were winners in that deal there.
Yeah, yeah. So what was your time like there then? You traveled the world and you tag team champion, intercontinental champion. Unfortunately, it seemed as I recall, and I'm just going off my own memory, you lost the title pretty much the next night, right?
2 days. I was the
2 days.
shortest lived intercontinental champion, and it's so funny, Samson, because
Yeah.
everywhere I go for Comic Cons, they all bring me pictures and dolls where they have the belt with me. You know, and I'm the shortest lived, like 2 days at the time anyway. It was the shortest lived, but it seemed like I marked it a lot, because when I beat Bret the Hitman Hart and gave it to Piper, it was like it was a time where I think that the Intercontinental title meant something,
Right.
you know, and so everybody who was champion in those days, it meant something, no matter how long, because the proof is 35 years later. I go, and like I said, I'm signing autographs, and every picture I see, I got the belt, and I'm going like, Jesus, don't you have any pictures without the belt? Like, you know, and it's so funny. So I must have marked the people somehow. So yeah,
Well,
unfortunately,
I mean, again, it's in the top of my memory. I haven't, I just remember you having the Intercontinental title. I mean, I remember the match. I remember all of it. It was just like yesterday, right? So,
and it's amazing, because, you know, I was lucky in my career. I had some really great matches. I'm thinking of the Big Boss Man jailhouse match I had with the loser that spends the night in jail, and
right.
that was such an amazing match. And everybody talked him. I was lucky. I had a couple of I had a match where I beat Hulk Hogan in Montreal. I'm the only Canadian actually to beat Hulk Hogan in Canada,
Nice.
and you know, with a clean pin.
Hmm.
So that was amazing for me. I've had Jimmy Hart as my wrestling manager twice, as the Fabulous Rougeau brothers, and as the Mountie, and Jimmy Hart, one of the greatest managers of all times, you know,
Hmm.
and people ask me sometimes, well, why do you say that, Jacque? Because he was your manager? And I say, no, I say that because he was the only manager, the only one out of all the managers that I knew at the time that would come on the air and would say, when he'd start the interview, he'd say, hey, let me tell you something about my man. Let me tell you something about him. And he would never take the spotlight. He would never come in and say, hey, let me tell you something. I'm intelligent. I'm the brain. I'm this. And it was never about him. It was always about his personality, his character that was with him. When
Hmm.
you had Jimmy Hart as your manager, you'd always feel so important. Like, you know, he treated you. And then He'd dress up like you. He'd buy some coats. He'd make some matching clothes with you. He did the two best wrestling teams that are still alive today. That people come 40 years later and they start singing, "I'm the Mountie, I'm handsome, I'm brave," and then or they come to me and they say, "We don't like heavy metal, we don't like rock and roll. All we like to listen to is Barry Manilow. Hey, we're all American, all American." And so that was Jimmy Hart.
Yeah.
That was all Jimmy Hart. So Jimmy Hart, when you had him as your manager, that was the best thing that could ever happen to any wrestler.
Wow. Jimmy Hart is ageless. I looked at him recently. He looks the same. Obviously, he's aged, but I mean, the man looks phenomenal.
He's still kicking. He's 80 years old. He goes sign autographs. I meet him in Comic Cons all over the place, and every time we, "Hey, how you doing, Jacque? Hey, how you doing, Jacque? Hey, baby, how you doing, baby?" And,
Absolutely. So,
he's a machine.
so Doc, I have to ask you this, and I've not been able to. We had the Bushwhackers on, but I know they never had a manager per se, so I could never ask this question. Back in those days, what was the actual role of the manager? Was it just an on-screen personality, or did they actually have more of a role as an actual manager?
That's another reason why Jimmy Hart was the greatest one, because they didn't have any other role except to be on TV, be your manager, and
Okay.
then go on TV. It was except Jimmy Hart wasn't. Jimmy
Okay.
Hart was the kind of guy that would come up to you and would say, "Hey, Jacques, listen, try to get there early tomorrow, because there's a spot open and I think we could get on early. We could do this, we'll get the work done. And I think, and hey, Jacques, this, and hey, Jacques, that." And he was always really working for me like he was a personal manager in life, always doing things and saying things that would make me and put me in a better position in life, so he was acting like a real manager, never paid for it, but always giving advice. "Hey, Jacques, even a couple of years back, like about I'd say about 7, 8 years back, I was doing signings, and then at one point, Jimmy Hart came to see me. He said, "Jacques," he says, "why don't you have your suit on, like to do the signings?" I said, "Well," I said, "nobody else has them." He said, "Jacques, you got to put your suit on." He says, "The people recognize you like that. They see you and they recognize." And ever since then, 7, 8 years ago, I started putting my suit, especially the Mountie one.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, and I got my hat, my glasses, and everything. And when I see Jimmy Hart now, he always looked at me and says, "Jacques, you look great, man. You look great." And I realized that when you're in line and you're in a tank top like this, and you're in t-shirt like that, 30 years later, you don't look the same way you did. But when you put your gear on, people are in line on the other lines around you. And then next thing you know is there are about 3, 4 lines beside you, and they're pointing at you like, "Hey, the Mountie's over there. Look, the Mountie's over there." So that brings a lot of more people around, So Jimmy Hart, that's the reason why. Jimmy Hart, he never had a job as being a real manager in life, only on scene, but he did so much more.
Oh, wow, fantastic. Now, Jacques, I want to talk about this a little bit as well, because I think this is really interesting point, because you lived it, kayfabe.
Yeah.
We know it doesn't exist anymore, but you lived the business at the height of kayfabe. Most of your work was done at the height of the kayfabe. Talk about that. What was it like in the locker room with everyone at that point? Because I know everyone was true to their characters. How did that work backstage with everybody?
Well, I think when you come to say that, the biggest thing that comes to mind was, like, I remember ever since I was very young in the dressing room at my father's business and my uncle business and my brother's Raymond's business, it was always like it was more like for the newspaper guys. It was more for the people that would come in the dressing room that had no business there. And as soon as they'd walk in, with the two rooms would communicate, the heels and the baby face, and they go in the shower and talk about their match and stuff. And then you'd have or you'd be at the office. At the building upstairs, in the afternoon when the guys would meet, and then a security guard would come who had no business there. Yeah, the first thing you'd hear someone say in the hallway is like, kayfabe guys, like, in other words, split now,
Yeah,
separate, because
yeah.
there's this guy that doesn't know that wrestling's fake here, and he doesn't know, he's not part of the deal here. So it was more like that. You had reporters that come around in the dressing room that night. So every time you'd have a time where even like a lot of the guys would travel, the heels and the babyface would travel together, but they would drop the guy off a block before they get to the building or the arena and stuff like that. But sometimes they were stopping at a toilet or something on the way or something, and then one guy would come close, a Mark would come close by accident. He'd be there, and he'd say, "Hey, how you doing there, Jacques?" And then in the same car would be Pat Patterson, my opponent.
Yeah.
I'd get out of the car real fast and say, "Kayfabe, Pat, kayfabe." So Pat would put a towel on top of his head,
Oh,
and I'd go talk to the guy. So it was really religious and it was sacred at the time, that
yes.
to try and protect the business, that not to expose that it was fake or that it was a work.
I remember when I finally realized the business, like I finally got smart to it. It was at a house show here in Vancouver, Yokozuna versus The Undertaker casket match. Very quickly, Taker won. Everything is beautiful, but at that time, unfortunately, they didn't cover everything in the back, right? So they just had the curtain and the rod, and where I was sitting, I could see them walk in to the back. So I saw Taker leave. Yoko came out. They rolled him out in the casket. I watched it. They came out. It opened. He came out and he's standing there. And then Taker does his thing for the crowd at the end. He came out and he's walking to the back. And I'm looking. And there's Yoko standing there. I'm like, Undertaker, Yokozuna's behind there. Wait, look, watch out. Yoko's there. He didn't listen to me. He walks in there and they hugged each other and, did a fist bump. And I saw
The
that.
Santa Claus is not real.
At that point, if you can physically see my heart, just
Oh,
right. And I saw that, and I'm like, I'll be honest, I didn't watch wrestling for 4 months because I was just so devastated. Because I just like all of a sudden everything for 8 years, I believed it was good against evil, and then I started to realize, okay, now I get it. But you know what? It only took 4 months, and I got over it, and we're back in the action. But I want to ask you about Pat Patterson, sir.
Well, hold on a second. I want to tell you a story, Thompson.
Yeah.
I'm 12 years old, 13 years old, and I'm not even smart to the business. I'm a kayfabe myself. They're kayfabing me all the time,
Yeah.
and so I'm going to an arena one night, and my father broke his leg the night before, and he had to perform the next day.
Right.
So he didn't put in a cast. He just had a lot of antibiotics and a lot of painkillers, and he went to do the show the next night. But he was going to finish it with a knockout. As soon as the match started, the guy goes to jump and knocks him out. And so my father comes up to me and he says, "Listen," he says, "when you come to the ring with me," he says, "I want you to come to the ring with me." He says, "I'm going to give you my robe." And he says, "When I give you my robe," he says, "Michel Justice Dubois, Alexei Smirnov, he's going to come and he's going to offer to shake you his hand." And I looked at my dad. I said, "Well, how do you know that? Like, how do you know?" And he says, "Just listen to me." He says he's gonna. My father was in pain, really bad. It was almost like a way out to save the show.
Yes.
So he decided that night that he was gonna put me smart. So he says he's gonna offer to shake your hand. He says when you go to shake his hand, he says, "Don't worry, he's gonna slap you in the neck." And he says, "Just fall on the side of the ring and don't worry about the rest." Because my father's going to knock him out and go with a 1, 2, 3 real quick. So I looked at my dad, and my dad was my hero at the time.
Yeah.
He was my hero, and I was so disappointed. I was so hurt, and I didn't want to watch wrestling for, I think, like you said, for a couple of weeks, or I can't remember how long. And then finally I started saying, well, there's another side to it. At least now, I'm in. I'm in the group now, and so I got over it. But it was such a disappointment when my father asked me to be a part of his his night there, his storyline, But so I understand, yeah, it was. I'm sorry, I didn't want to bring that in, but it was just you bring back souvenirs.
No, absolutely. But at the same time, while you were telling me this, I started to think a little bit about the experience myself. And the thing I realized, so once I realized what we love is what it is, I started to see it differently. I started to notice more now. Now I'm watching how guys throw their punches. I'm starting to notice facial expressions more. It wasn't just a fight anymore. Now I'm starting to see the dance. I'm starting to understand the ballet between the two participants or all the participants in there, and everybody plays a role. You know what I mean?
I was just so happy that I was part of the group now.
Yeah.
Like, I was in. Like,
you were in. Absolutely.
That was cool.
Absolutely. Cool. But to take it back, I was going to ask you, tell us about Pat Patterson from your experiences. A wonderful man,
a great man. Pat Patterson, a great man. Pat Patterson worked against us in Quebec for a long time. Him and Pierre-Marc Lefebvre, him and Frenchie Martin against me and Raymond. We had great matches. Easy guy to work with, fun to work with. I worked singles with Pat. I had so much fun. And then Pat became a right-hand man for Vince McMahon in WWF. And I was in Pensacola working some small territories at the time.
Yeah.
And that's when he recruited me, Pat. He asked me to go do a show in Verdun, Quebec there, and the first show ever in WWF. And he was going to opposition to Dino Bravo and my brother Raymond and all them and Ricky Martel. So I wasn't working with them anymore. I had a conflict with Dino Bravo. So he went to get me in Pensacola, brought me in main event for WWF. That night I was the main event to the whole big card against Samu. Put me over in the middle of the ring with a crossbody block. It was a great time. And then after that, I made my point clear to Dino, like, hey, you better use me or I'm gonna be gone. I won't come back. And so Dino called me back and everything. So I worked that summer back at home, gave me the belts, gave me everything I wanted. But then Vince kept calling me for Vince and Pat, they kept calling me for I'd say 8 months. And I kept telling, tell my friends, like, tell them I'm gone in the boat. Tell them I'm gone in the boat. I'm not there. And I was really hard to get. It's plain hard to get, but I didn't want to go. I had my boat. I had a beautiful life. I was champion in Quebec. I was making money. I didn't want to go, and I knew there was all full of steroid heads and crazy people in New York, and I didn't want to. And then finally, they really Pat really after hassling me, and then he said, "Listen, Jacque," he says, name what you want. He says, we want you.
Wow.
So I said, okay. I said, well, I want $5,000 a week, and I want to bring my brother Raymond with me as a tag team. So they said, you got it. So that's when I talked to Raymond, and then we decided. Then he decided to come, and we decided to go. And so it was. That's how we. But Pat Patterson had almost everything to do with that, I think.
That's phenomenal. So you've had 40 plus years in the business, all the way from your early childhood. How's the body?
Body.
Fantastic. But in terms of, you look amazing. You look amazing.
No,
Throughout your career,
I got about 10, 15 pounds in the stomach to lose, but apart from that, I'm really strong. Legs, traps, shoulders. I'm doing cardio every day. I'm really having fun still in life. Last year, I had a hard time with my body. Last year, I had a wake-up call.
right?
Last year, the invincible, the untouchable Jacques got touched.
Yeah.
And I had a series of problems with my body. I had the parathyroids that are these four little rice pieces there that are behind the thyroid glands. And those four things, what they do, the parathyroids, is if your body is short in calcium, those four little rice things, the size of a rice thing, they go in your body and your bones, they get the calcium and they bring it to your body. But the opposite could happen, which happened to me, is my parathyroids, they started producing calcium. Like they went berserk. So I end up having big stones, like kidney stones, bladder stones, big like golf balls. They keep coming into me. So I had one operation, another operation. I had a tube coming out of the penis. I had a tube coming out of the ribs. And they were operating me. And finally they found out that it was my parathyroids that went crazy. So they operated me there, and then they found a cancer in my throat.
Oh my
goodness.
So
they cut off a cancer in my throat. So that's all happened in the space of 3 months. And then on the last day of my 3 months, when they finally took 2 of my parathyroids out, which you have 4, they took 2 out because I was producing too much calcium.
Yeah.
So then it would stabilize everything. So the last day I go to get the tube out of the side of my ribs here. That was because my kidneys were dying because of this, and because of the stones and everything, they were blocked. So the last day they came and get my stone out, I caught a bacteria in the hospital.
Oh my goodness.
So this bacteria went to launch itself right at the entrance where your heart, the blood goes in your heart. But it was like a little Christmas decoration, but right in front of where the blood goes in your heart. So then they start talking to me. I've been in the hospital for like 2.5 months, and then they start talking to me about an open heart surgery because they had to go get that little gland, that little thing that was hanging, ding-a-ling there in front of you. And I was going like, what? Open heart surgery? I'm in shape, and it was just freaking me out. Everything was freaking. So finally, the antibiotics, they did the job. It disappeared, and they didn't have to cut me open like a lobster. But to tell you for 2 weeks that they're going to cut you open every day, they don't know what day they're going to cut. It was like I finally realized, like, Jacque, you're touchable. You know, you think you were untouchable all your life in shape, and so perspective changes in life, and that was last year. So now everything's under control again. I'm back in shape again. But you know, what a wake up call! You know,
Hmm.
what a real wake up call to see that everybody. You never know when your time could come. You know,
No.
and so what an experience. And it was so funny because I also did last year the Masked Singer. You know, I
Yeah.
was on the Masked Singer, the Quebec Masked Singer, and I was in the hospital and they were pulling me out. I was pulled out of the hospital to go sing and to record my
Oh.
song and to go dance. And then I had my tube in my everywhere inside of me. It was so funny, but I was under a big costume, so no one knew. And I was a lobster, you know, the
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
costume. So it was like, wow, what an experience. And then it kept me going though, because I love to sing. I love music.
Yeah.
And so that was a great experience. We started with 20 participants. I ended up being eliminated when there was only 8 left. So I did 4 songs.
That's
You know,
awesome.
that was fun. It was really a great experience. And at the same time, because of that exposure. Then I got Videotron, which is the biggest cable company that hired me and my sons and my girlfriend to make a commercial on TV, where, you know,
Awesome.
it's the internet going through the wall, but then
Yeah.
it's really me going through the wall, you know, and saying, and I look like an idiot there. I come, the guy's in my office. He says, "Okay, Mr. Rougeau, your internet's ready." So I
Mm.
said, and he goes right through the wall. So I look at him and say, "Right through the wall?" And then I turn around and you see me go right through the wall. And then my girlfriend, she's sitting in the living room, my kids, and I go like, and I'm going like, "Hey, honey, the internet goes right through the wall," you know.
That's
but
awesome.
that but that commercial brought me a lot of money, brought me a lot of fame, a lot of visibility.
Mhm.
So with that and the lobster at the Masked Singer, my merchant value came right back up again. So that was great, and it was good for the Rougeau family. It's great, and plus my brother Raymond's the mayor now of his city, so he's all
Yes.
over the news all the time.
Yes.
So the Rougeau name is very much alive in Quebec right now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Kane, mayor in Tennessee, and Raymond, mayor in Quebec. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I like to just segue here a little bit if I can. And talking about competitions and what have you, today you are training wrestlers and you actually have a competition happening yourself right now called Wrestle Academy. Actually, we have a clip. I love to show that clip. And then after that, maybe
Let's
we can
do it.
talk about it a little bit.
Let's do it.
Fantastic. Guys, gals, here we go. Wrestle Academy.
With many participants eliminated from the competition, the tension rises for those remaining in Jacque Rougeau's Wrestling Academy. C'est le temps de voir l'élite de Lutte Académie de Jacque Rougeau se diriger vers le sommet de la montagne. It's time. Like the Macho Man used to say, the green rises to the top. Ooh yeah. Préparez-vous, on s'en va en demi-finale. Get ready, we're going to the semi-finals. Il y a 19 personnes toujours en lice pour gagner l'un des 3 prix de 10 000 $. There's 19 participants still aiming for one of 3 prizes of $10,000 et 3 mois haut and 3 months at The Nightmare Factory with QT Marshall, Cody Rhodes, and Billy Gunn. Voici la carte des combats du 20 août prochain au Club Soda de Montréal. Here are the matches scheduled for August 20th at Montreal's Club Soda. The King, Brandon Bright, versus the Lion Warrior, Bobby Sharp. Combat à 3, triple threat match. The Salsa King, John Gonzalez, versus Jesse Beaver, versus Jefferson James. Nikita versus Zoe Sager. Combat 3 contre 3, 3 versus 3 tag match. Stephen Maines, Gabriel Savage avec Michael Plouf, York Hackett with Sugar Shane Pinto versus Maverick Wheeler, Sean Moore, Clutch Jesse B. Combat par équipe, tag team action. Casey Spinelli, Relentless Riley Rose versus Kat Von Eves, Sandra Lee. Michael Richard Blaze versus Chad Daniels. Vous pouvez regarder les quarts de finale sur le www.lutteacademy.ca. You can watch the quarterfinals on www.wrestling-academy.ca. Avez-vous vos billets pour la demi-finale au Club Soda? Do you have your tickets for the semi-finals at Club Soda? Trop tard, too late. Mais vous pouvez acheter vos billets pour la finale du 17 septembre sur le site du Club Soda, mais faites vite. But you can purchase your tickets for the September 17th finals on the Club Soda website, but do act quickly.
And there you go. What a wonderful video. What a great clip. The semifinals are coming up on August the 20th. Tell us about Wrestle Academy. Where did this idea come from?
So amazing.
We're coming
so
up to
amazing,
this.
Samson. I have so many things to say. I'm so excited. Thank
Let's
you for
go.
showing the clip.
No,
Thanks for
thank
showing
you.
the clip. It's the greatest thing that happened to me in so many years, you know, and after COVID especially, you know, and closing my wrestling school before that and finishing wrestling with my kids. My 3 kids stopped wrestling. So wrestling was out of my life again. And what a depression, you know, wrestling has been with me for like 50 years. So it's like, you know, it was like losing a big part of me. And so here's how it happened. So during the COVID, I started doing podcasts. So you see these podcasts here, Rougeau podcasts, because there's nothing else to do in life. So my son and I, we decided to do a podcast. And what I'm doing is I'm using my notoriety to bring in singers, hockey players, and Georges Saint-Pierre, GSP from, I'm bringing out all the people that I met in my career, and I'm bringing them in my little home, my little tiki. I got a little tiki like it's down south where they have tiki bars and stuff.
Yeah.
So I have a tiki,
Nice.
and I got my podcast in there. And then I get this girl that comes in, and she is the winner of a TV show, of a singing contest, and it's called Star Academy. So this was like a contest where they'd recruit all kind of singers from across Quebec, and every week they would eliminate them, and the last one that would win, she would win the grand prize of going at the Bell Center to sing with Celine Dion.
Oh, wow.
You know, on the same stage as her in one of her concerts. So that was her win. So wow. So she was explaining that in the podcast, and she was so nice and everything. And then when she left, I looked at my girlfriend. I said, "What if we do a wrestling academy? You know, what if we recruit wrestlers from all over Canada? I'll find sponsors to buy the airplane tickets, and we'll get sponsors to buy hotels, and we'll bring them in to Montreal, and we'll start competing. So we'll flip a coin to see who wins and who loses the match. That's not important. So what we'll do though is we'll vote on their interviews, on their wrestling abilities, on their looks, on their charisma, and we're just going to have judges by the ring. And after each match, we're going to go ahead and decide who we keep and who we send home." So I'm thinking, so we start putting this together. So I find 4 sponsors of $5,000 for the winners, like 1 woman and 3 men. And then I'm saying to myself, I'm saying, I need something bigger to catch everybody in, to bring everybody in. So then one day I get this idea. I have this guy that tells me about the school in Atlanta, Georgia called the Nightmare Factory, owned by QT Marshall, Cody Rhodes, and Billy Gunn. So I'm saying to myself, you know, wouldn't it be great? You know, I have an idea. So I get QT Marshall's phone number, a guy I don't even know because I don't know the talent for the last 30 years. I don't know who he is. So I call QT Marshall on the phone, and he answers because it was me. Because he knew me, though. He knew that because he was brought up in the wrestling business. So he knew who the Fabulous Rougeau brothers, the Quebecers, and the Mountie was.
Yes,
so
sir.
when he got me, I was on the phone. He says, "How you doing, Mr. Rougeau?" I said, "QT Marshall." I said, "Listen," I said, I don't know if you know me or not. He says, "Sure, I know you, Jacque." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, listen, that may make it easier." I said, "I have a favor to ask you." I said, "I have 4 winners this year at the end of September that are going to win a contest." And I said, "I'd like to make them feel like superstars." So what I was wondering is if my 4 winners, I'd like to rent a truck or something, a bus in Montreal, and I'd like to drive down to Atlanta, Georgia, to your wrestling school and spend the weekend there and have you guys evaluate them, teach them maybe 1 lesson and maybe do interviews with them and help them out, make them feel like superstars,
Right on.
you know, and being around the talent, the big talent there. Jake the Snake was there. There's a lot of guys that were there. So just make them feel like they're important. I said, I'd like to, and I do a lot of publicity for the Nightmare Factory if you want at the same time. And that'll be for the weekend. He says, I'd love to do that. So that's how it starts.
Awesome.
So I put a group chat, and now I'm starting requests all over Canada, from Vancouver to Prince Edward Island stuff. The 10 provinces I'm sending into the local federations, the indies, like, hey, if you want to join this contest, we'll pay your airfares, we'll pay the hotel, and there'll be no salary. You're not going to be paid to wrestle because it's a contest, but it won't cost you anything. And you have the chance to win $5,000 plus spend the weekend at the Nightmare Factory. So I'm starting to get some. I got 19 inscriptions from Canada, and
Nice.
I got 21 from Quebec. So there was
Wow.
more in one province. My province was more than the other 9 provinces. So I understand that people didn't believe in this, like winning 5,000 and winning this. And plus there was a lot of haters out there against this project. You know, there's a lot of jealousy in wrestling, and so I got more inscriptions in Quebec only. So we did the contest, and next thing you know is about 3-4 months or into the contest, I'm starting to use my notoriety. So I'm starting to do podcasts in Australia and Europe. I'm doing podcasts all over the world about Wrestling Academy and this. So now people are starting to hear about it in the wrestling world. So next, and I'm getting exposure, giving a lot of exposure to the talent. So next thing you know, QT Marshall writes to me about 3-4 months later. He says, Jacques, I got to speak with you. So I thought, maybe, so I said, oh shit. I said, I think I got some heat there, you know,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
I was talking about the Nightmare Factory all the time, and they said so. So I called him up, and he says, Jacques, what are you doing? I says, well, what do you mean? He says, well, he says, my phone here in Atlanta is red. He says, I'm getting calls from everywhere. I'm getting calls from all around the world. People that want to write, they want to come and join the Nightmare Factory. The haters are calling me. Wrestlers are calling me. You have a lot of haters, Jacques. I said, yeah, I do. He says, you know, but he says, I could make my own decision. So he says, listen, he says, why don't we, instead of you bring your talent in for the weekend, why don't I take him for a whole week?
Oh, wow.
So I went, wow. That's 3-4 months into the project. I'm going like, wow, this is awesome. I go in my group chat. So everybody that subscribes to 41 subscriptions, I said, hey, I got good news. You're not going for the weekend. You're going to spend the week there.
That's
So
awesome.
that's awesome. You know, so everybody's excited. So about 6 months goes by, because now we're 9 months before we get to the competition.
Sure.
So about a month before we get into the competition, QT Marshall, I'm doing a podcast in Montreal with Nick Drosis. And that night I'm asking, and since there's so many haters blasting me about, you know, Jacque Rougeau's lying about this and about that. And so I called QT. I said, QT, would you mind doing me a video? Just to show that it's true, that what I'm doing here, that it's
Yeah.
legit, you know. So he says, so I get on Nick podcast, and then he sends the video. So Nick podcast says, Jacques, I received a video from QT Marshall today. I know there's a lot of people that don't believe what you're doing, but here it is. So Andy says, hello, everybody. My name is QT Marshall at the Nightmare Factory. And I just want everybody to know you're hearing it from the horse's mouth right now that Jacque Rougeau's winners of Wrestling Academy are going to come and spend 3 months here at the Nightmare Factory. I did what you did. I looked at my girlfriend. I looked at, and he just decided he was going to give 3 months lesson for my
Wow.
winners.
Wow.
So then I put that on every podcast I did. I showed that. I was so excited and everything. And next thing you know, about 2 weeks before going into the show, he starts deciding that my 4 winners are also going to be on AEW, Rampage and Dynamite for the first day in Toronto, the first time the AEW comes to Canada, the first show. So if you go watch the archives,
Yeah.
you'll see that Jeremy Prophet and Jessica
Yeah.
Black are the first match that ever appeared. Those are 2 of the winners from Montreal that
Yeah.
appeared, and then Matt Black and also Chris Dillon from the Maritimes that won. They were all on Dynamite and
Yeah.
Rampage, and so that happened. And the next thing you know is this guy in Australia that I did a podcast with owns a company, LJN figures. So he decides after the podcast, he's seen this get so big. He says, Jacques, he says, I'm going to do 4 figurines of your winners of Wrestling
Wow.
Academy. So have your own dolls. You know, isn't that
Yeah.
amazing?
That's
So
amazing.
so now that whole, and every time we have a show in Montreal, we only have 4 shows: the quarterfinals 2 times,
Mhm.
semifinals, and then the finals. It's only 4 shows during the year:
Right.
May, June, August, May, June, July, and August. And so when that happens, every time we have a show in Montreal, there's a match that happens, and then we go on the giant screen, and from Atlanta, Georgia, because of technology, QT Marshall shows up after every match, and he eliminates the people.
Oh, wow.
You know, so he's the
Yeah.
one eliminating the people. So that became so big that this year, last fall, when we had the second season, when it was over with, we gave the money to everybody. They spent 3 months in the Nightmare Factory. Well, that gave a lot of credibility to the competition. So everybody starts saying, hey, that shut up a lot of haters, you know, and it's like, so because it happened. And
Yeah.
then when it went to AEW and everything happened, they got the figurines, they got the money. So this year, in November, when we had the subscriptions, contrary to last year, where I had 21 inscriptions in Quebec and 19 in Canada, this year I had 11 in Quebec and I had 60 in Canada.
Wow.
And you should see the talent. Well, you just saw a little bit of it now.
Yeah.
You should see the talent. Go on wrestling-academy.ca. Wrestling-academy, and you can go see all the first quarterfinals on there, the two shows, because we're
Yeah.
moving up to the semifinals. But you can also see all the talent that's participating. You can click on their picture, and then you'll see a video of them talking and then wrestling also their best moves. So you get to know them a little bit.
Right
Plus,
on.
if you go down a little further and then down on the website, you'll see all my old timer friends there. You'll see Undertaker, Bret Hart. You'll see Ric Flair. They're everybody. You'll see Tito Santana. I can't name them all. Ronnie Garvin. It goes on and on and on. Jeff Jarrett, and they all do videos to tell the Canadian wrestlers, like, hey, this is the greatest competition. Go check this out. So this has got bigger and bigger. So this year, I remember last year when it finished, the next day I told QT Marshall, I said, Mr. Marshall, I just wanted to say thank you very much for, and he told me, he says, are we doing this again next year? And I said, wow, for sure. And then that's when we this year we have the $10,000 winners
Wow.
instead of
That's
5,000.
awesome.
And then not only that, this last year, like QT Marshall was there in the finals only on the giant screen, by the way. The
Right.
first three shows, I was the judge with a couple of commentators, and we eliminated them. And at the finals, QT was there for the finals. But when we finished last year, after the show, he says, Jacque, there's two things I want to change. He says, this year, I want to choose the people that may send subscriptions in. It's not up to you now. I want to do it with you.
Right
When you
on.
come at the Nightmare Factory to see your winners this fall, I want to choose with you. And the other thing too is I don't only want to be on the giant screen for the finals. I want to be there for the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the finals. So we became like his little pet project,
Yeah.
if you'd like.
Yeah.
And so now it's just absolutely amazing. I can't wait on that. And here's the best of all. So he's going to be on the giant screen on the 20th of August. But on the 17th of September, it's
Yes.
the finals.
Okay.
QT Marshall is not going to be on the giant screen. He's coming to Montreal to be there live, and he's going to wrestle one of the guys that he eliminated during the competition.
Well, that would be
You know,
fun.
just for a consolation prize. He's
That'd
going
be
to wrestle,
amazing.
and then he's bringing one of his superstars over there. Anyway, she's a female wrestler, and she's going to be wrestling with one of my females that were eliminated during the show.
Oh, wow.
D'Ambroise, Ashley D'Ambroise. And
Okay.
she's gonna be there to wrestle so they're both coming in together from a TV taping in the state.
Yeah.
And they're gonna come fly into Montreal, and they're gonna be judged in Montreal, but they're also gonna perform that night with one of the people they eliminated. So what a great opportunity for even someone who loses the competition has a chance to wrestle QT Marshall,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
night
Yeah.
of the finals.
No,
You know,
absolutely.
there's two criterias. I'll always remember that when I started in the business, and my dad always told me that advice. There's two criterias. He says, to make it in this business, he says, you got to be at the right place at the right time, and you got to know the right people. And this wrestling academy, that's what they're doing. I don't have any working visas for my winners or nothing, but what I do have is 3 months that I'm taking you to Atlanta, where Cody Rhodes just finished WrestleMania main event this year and won the Royal Rumble. He's your teacher for 3 months. Billy Gunn, a Hall of Famer. QT Marshall, that's all over storylines all around the world right now.
Yeah.
He's your teacher. For
Yeah.
3 months, they're going to teach you 5 days a week. So the first week you're going to be there, you're probably going to say, how you doing, Mr. Rhodes? How you doing, Mr. Marshall? And after a month, it's going to be like, hi, QT, hi, and then hi, Cody, and then hi,
Yeah.
Billy. And
Yeah.
then after 2 months, you may go have supper together. And after 3 months, you create
Magic.
friendship.
Yeah.
And so that's the chance that I'm giving to all the Canadian talent. So I'm just like a trampoline to bring them there, and hopefully,
No,
if they
absolutely.
have something that they could show off and they could be better than them, or just catch the eye of Cody Rhodes or Billy Gunn or QT Marshall, and then from there it's easy for them to sign them up and get the working visas and all that stuff. So what a great competition this! I'm so happy to just have created this with my girlfriend. Just me and my girlfriend, we created this, and the sponsors, all the sponsors, like this year I got $60,000 worth of sponsors.
Wow.
30,000 for the winners, the 3 winners of 10,000, plus the airfares, the hotels. Without them, I couldn't have done that. So it's just awesome.
Mr. Rougeau, you got me thinking that I need to hop on a plane and come down to Montreal for at least the finals if I can make it. I'm going to try.
Well, if you can't, if you like the average person and you
Yeah.
don't have time, wrestling-academy.ca. Go check out the first two
Yep.
quarterfinal shows are on there.
Okay.
And on the 20th of August, the semifinals, give me 3-4 days after that because we edit the show and stuff.
Sure.
So the show's the 20th of August, but around the 24th or 25th of August, you'll see it appear on wrestling-academy.ca,
Awesome.
the semifinals.
Awesome.
And that's going to be so awesome. And then you get on the 17th of September. So put it around the 21st or 22nd of September. 4 or 5 days later, you'll be able to go follow the whole competition to see how it went, and who's
That's
going
phenomenal.
to Atlanta. It's really real. You should see the talent
Yeah.
from out west that we got. It's amazing, the talent. You'll see the shows.
Yeah,
we had a
no.
great show. We had a great show on the 7th of May, but the 4th of June that we had, go check the 4th of June show.
Definitely.
Holy mackerel! Wait till you see the talent on there.
No,
And
we'll
now
definitely.
the best of the 7th of May are fighting the best of the 4th of June. That's on August 20th. So the
Can't
best
wait.
against the best. That's going to be something because QT Marshall is going to have a hell of a hard time to choose between those talents. And he's going to make dreams for people and he's going to create a lot of sadness in the one that he's going to eliminate.
No, for
Because,
sure.
$10,000 in 3
Hey.
months at the Nightmare Factory.
No, absolutely. Okay, so for the listeners, what criteria do you guys use to judge the talent? What are you guys looking for?
Well, that's what I mean. You're going to look at them before they get in the ring. They have a 30-second promo. They have a 30-second promo that they have to do on the stage before getting in the ring. So we're going to judge to see if they're marketable, if they can market themselves, if they're good on the mic.
Right.
And then we're going to look at their costumes. We're going to see if they're marketing themselves. They have logos, if you could recognize them, if their merchandise could happen. Then you're going to look, of course, at their wrestling ability. That's
Absolutely.
one thing. And then you're going to look at their charisma to see if, and a lot of people ask me, well, Mr. Rougeau, what is charisma? Well, I'll tell you what charisma is. If people don't know what it is, I'll tell you what it is in a simple way. You go in a restaurant and they have wrestling on the giant screens there. When you move in the restaurant, and then you look at the giant screen, you see the wrestlers, and then you go and you sit down. Or you go in the restaurant, you look at the screen, and you see the wrestler, and then after you look at the wrestler, you just stop and you just watch, and there's something drawing you to them. That's charisma. That's charisma.
Yeah.
If they could get your attention like that you don't even know them, you're just looking at them and they're like, if that's what I call charisma. And when you have that, you draw people's looks, you draw people towards you. And so we're looking for those criterias to pass you to the next round. Who does it best? And you know what's funny about this competition? What's really good is a lot of great wrestlers, female and males, have a reputation before coming to the night of the show.
Yeah.
But you know what? You're only as good as your last match.
Absolutely.
You can have the biggest reputation in the world, but that night when you get in the ring, that's when you're judged. Not for what you've done in the past, but what you're doing right now that night. And in wrestling, it's so fun. It's so funny because I'm wrestling 25 days a month. Sometimes I'd wrestle with the same guys night after night. And some nights were just better than others, but we do the same thing. But just some nights were good nights and some nights were bad nights. And so anybody can have a good night or a bad night. And once in a blue moon, you can have an exceptional night.
100%.
So you just want to hope, that it's on the 20th of August.
Absolutely.
That you can have an exceptional night.
Now, you guys all the judges are very well tuned, very well versed, and very well educated in what you're looking for and what have you. I asked this question because fans will be present, obviously. A lot of shows I've gone to independently and I've seen on television, sometimes I find that some shows aren't that great, but they look great because the crowd is so into it. Again, just because of the way I see the product myself personally, right? Whereas I've seen shows where the product was amazing, but the crowd wasn't into it, which didn't give it the credit it needed. Do you guys look at that as well as a part of the judging criteria, or you know what I mean?
Well, to be honest with you, everybody's going to say the same thing, so I won't be any different. But in Montreal, we got the greatest fans of all.
We saw that in February.
The fun thing about it, everywhere you live, you're going to say that. So that's not a problem. That's not an issue here. But what is the thing that makes it so amazing is that we have all the best wrestlers around Canada now, from Vancouver to Calgary to Alberta to Manitoba, Saskatchewan. We got all the best wrestlers. So when you look at them locally, when they have independent shows, independent companies local in each province, you have a certain amount of talent, a certain amount of okay wrestlers, and some that need to learn. But when you're going in a competition like this, it's the best of every province.
Right.
So everybody's surprised to see the talent there and impressed and amazed about all the talent. So it's like, you're gonna have a hell of a show.
Yeah.
So it's and the best thing of this show, the best thing of the show is everybody knows that wrestling is a work. Everybody is okay, it's a storyline.
Yeah.
But the greatest thing about this show, this reality show, is you don't know who QT Marshall's going to choose. And
Yeah.
from the beginning, wait till you watch and you see the shows of the 4th of June and the 7th of May. You're going to see sometimes I'm calling for some winners, but QT Marshall's calling for somebody else. And we have a running gag now because I start telling him, QT Marshall, you're a funny kind of guy, because he doesn't pick the same people I do. So you never know what the coach, what QT Marshall's going to be looking, what you're going to draw him into. And Jeremy Prophet, the winner, is a commentator with me. What a great commentator, by the way. He's with me this year. And you'll see that he's so great in the commentary because he wrestled most of all the talent in Canada and he won last year. So he's be able to talk about the participants more personally and stuff like that. But even me and him, we choose winners and then we pass the torch to QT Marshall on the giant screen and he decides. We
That's
just give
awesome.
our comment. And then sometimes you'll see he doesn't agree at all with us. And so that's what makes this competition amazing. And that's why I think that the talent enjoy this competition, because even if you're an underdog, or even like if you don't have exactly what it takes, he has a wrestling school where he may see something that, okay, you're not perfect there, but I could coach you. Are you coachable? And stuff like that. So it's an amazing contest. So this contest, what the fun about it is, what I'm trying to say is, we don't know who's going to win.
No.
And that's fun. That's fun because you can feel it in the comments, in the commentating, and in the show.
No, 100%. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be amazing. Everybody, you got to check these out. We will make sure to post all these links in our description so everyone can go there and check all of this. Absolutely. Mr. Rougeau, I want to say thank you so much. I know you have a million things going on. So I will wrap this up here just to kind of put it all together. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share your story and to share this great competition that's happening in our wonderful country here. Is there anything you'd like to say to the world and to...
I just want to say thank you to all those fans all across Canada and all across the world watching this podcast that without you guys, I never could have made it. I never would have been who I am without you guys, and especially the podcasters like you that give me the opportunity to expose this competition. And without you guys, I wouldn't be there. And so, Rome wasn't created in one day, and Rome wasn't created by one person only. And so thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you.
And be able to share this. I'm going to just ask you to put that wrestling-academy.ca at the bottom of your screen. Go check that out. You could also go check my Facebook, which you'll see me and my girlfriend, the picture of me and my girlfriend. Go, because I put a lot of stuff about the talent and interviews and stuff they do. You'll see. And plus, I talk about my Comic-Cons and everywhere I go to sign autographs, my tour in Canada that I'm doing shortly. So you'll be able to catch up and see if you want to come see me, take a picture with me or something. So thank you very much, Samson, for this great show. And then say hi to your buddy that didn't show up there.
Chance. Unfortunately, Chance, his schedule sometimes
a bad chance.
Hey, sometimes his schedule is such, man. But you know what? The show, like you know yourself, sir. The show must go on.
Yes,
sir. We don't miss a beat. We carry on. And you know what? Thank you as well, because without you, without all the legends and the superstars that I grew up with, I wouldn't be doing a podcast today. So I mean that everything I do today is because of everything that I got to embrace and love my whole life. So thank you so much, sir. And I would love to have you back on once the competition is over and we can talk about the winners and everything else. We would love to do that. And who knows, maybe Samp&Chance might be in Montreal for the finals as well. That would be
awesome. That would be awesome. Fantastic. We'll have a place for you. That's for sure. I'll reserve you a nice seat, the VIP
Thank you,
seat.
sir.
In the meantime, hello to Vancouver and Canada, all over, and wrestling-academy.ca. Go follow this competition. It's the biggest competition around the planet right now.
Absolutely. And in the words of the infamous Ed Whalen, in the meantime and in between time, everybody, that's it for Samp&Chance. Big shout out to Mr. Jacque Rougeau, the Mountie, the Quebecer tag team champion, intercontinental
Fabulous
champion,
Rougeau
and the
brothers.
fabulous Rougeau brothers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Have a wonderful night, sir.
Thank
Take
you.
care.